Have you ever seen or heard of unusual prison escapes, just like the ones in movies such as Prison Break, Papillon, Shawshank Redemption and Escape from Alcatraz? Speaking of Escape from Alcatraz, I will be giving you a brief history of what the true story really was that the movie was based on. The said movie was done by Morris and the Anglins. Yes, it sounds like a rock album by an 80s boy band, but believe me, it is one of the biggest mysteries ever recorded in America. Here, 4 criminals got into the limelight, being the greatest escapees of the land. Let's begin our story. Known as the United States Penitentiary, Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary, situated in Alcatraz Island, was generally regarded as escape-proof and the most secure and guarded prison in the country. Do you know the meaning of Alcatraz? It is an Arabic word which means the rock. It is built on an island 2 kilometers off San Francisco, California. It was built in 1910 as a military prison before the Federal Bureau of Prisons took over in August 1938. Since then, Alcatraz became the destination of the toughest criminals who committed the most heinous crimes, and those who had attempted escape at other prisons throughout the country. Some of the most notorious people of Alcatraz were Al Capone, Machine Gun Kelly, Creepy Corpus, and a lot more. Because of the 2 levels of security it had, Alcatraz was thought to be inescapable. During its first year, Uncle Sam's Devil Island had 242 inmates and 155 staff members, which is the lowest ratio of prisoners to guards during that time, and that any attempt to escape would prove worthless, as it had happened on several occasions. However, our escapees were aware of this, and took a differently ingenious approach to surpass the airtight security of the prison. Take note, the island was also surrounded with barbed wire, 20-foot fences and guard towers that any escapees could be easily located and gunned down from. Moreover, thanks to Mother Nature's role, because even if a prisoner makes it to the shore, he had to beat hypothermia or drowning, as he had to swim from the island through chilly waters. So, how did our escapees do the escape so skillfully? Time to meet them one by one. Alan West, the oldest member of the Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary. He already managed to get arrested over 20 times in Florida State Prison before he was transferred to Alcatraz in 1957. Frank Morris, who was the smartest among them, having an IQ of 133, putting him in the top 2 of all Americans during that time. He had already escaped from Louisiana State Penitentiary and got arrested again after a year for committing burglary and was sent to Alcatraz in January 1960. Morris was the most important character of this story, as he came up with the smart plan. Since he had been serving lunch to the prisoners from his early years at the prison, he already knew the ins and outs and the details of its structure. The Anglin brothers, William Anglin and Clarence Anglin, they were from Georgia, born to a family of 13 kids and noted to be inseparable even when they got transferred to Alcatraz from State Penitentiary. Here is the clue. Both of them were really good swimmers. They swam in the lake's icy waters when their family would go down to Michigan, to the amazement of their other siblings. Now that we met the main characters, let us proceed with the story. Since the 4 inmates were already acquainted with each other from the past escape attempts in Florida and Georgia, and having been aware of the deteriorating conditions of the facility, they decided to get adjacent rooms in Block B of the building. Of course, the first barrier they had to consider would be the tool-proof, heat-treated steel doors of the cells. Tool-proof, meaning sawing through it, is impossible. And another thing, getting the keys to open every door they would need to get through is unfeasible. Then, this is where their Block B cells came into play. The easiest way, make a door in the wall. Through the use of discarded saw blades, metal spoons and an improvised electric drill from a vacuum cleaner motor, they gradually widened the ventilation ducts in their cells. These ventilation ducts led to a corridor which then led to a vacant top level. To hide the drilling, they were doing it during music hours. They also used painted cardboards to mask the defaced wall. From the corridors, they would access the vacant top level where it was pretty much unguarded. Though Morris, the smartest one, was the master planner, it was West, the least intellectual of the group, who actually discovered that they could use the ventilation duct to escape. They just simply built a raft, life preservers, and paddles that they would use to beat the notorious staff and the Alcatraz waters. With the help of the designs they got from the Mechanics magazine and around 50 raincoats, they constructed the life preservers and a 6x14-foot raft. They stitched the raincoats together and used steam pipes to seal them. You may ask, how did no one even notice when they were away from their cells? The most ingenious idea of all: crafted dummy heads. They used concrete dust, toothpaste, toilet paper and soap to craft them to camouflage their absence. They even attached hair on them, since Clarence Anglin worked as a barber. However, when the guards tried to wake Morris up the following morning, the head rolled off the bed. It was June 11th, 1962, 6 months from the day they registered for adjacent cells. They used to set their dummies in place after lights out, removed the cardboard masking on the ventilation shaft and set for the roof. The sad part of the story was the oldest member of the group, Alan West, did not make it through in time since the cardboard mask had dried and he struggled to get it open. When he reached the rendezvous point, Morris and the Anglin brothers had already left without him. West had no choice but to return to his cell and go back to sleep. Now, Morris and the Anglins slid around 15 feet down a kitchen pipe from the rooftop, climbed the 12-foot fence, fought through the barbed wire before heading to the shoreline where they found a spot hidden from the guard towers and searchlights. Using a modified concertina, they inflated their raft. Estimates showed that they set their raft on water around 10 p.m. They beat the security systems of the prison. They fooled all the gods. They had escaped. But now the Florida waters, did they survive its chill? There was assumptions as to what happened after. 1, they did not survive the tides, and since there were no reports of stolen cars whatsoever which would have been necessary if they got to land. 2, they survived since till this day their bodies were nowhere to be found. An ex-Alcatraz inmate, Darwin Kuhn, believed that they really made it since none of the escapees' bodies were accounted for or recovered if drowned. And think about this. Anglin's family members say that they got unsigned postcards over the years. Their mother also received flowers every Mother's Day until she died. The presence of 2 tall women during their father's funeral and 2 bearded men who were seen weeping at the side of the casket before walking out were also noted. News that could implicit the sightings of the Anglins or Morris in places like Florida and Brazil were also reported. One more thing. Contrary to the FBI report that no car thefts were reported after the escape, a certain blue Chevrolet was indeed stolen in Marin County on that day. They happened to know this through the National Geographic documentary. These stories in the San Francisco Examiner and the Humboldt Times confirm all of this. Furthermore, a motorist in Stockton, California claimed that he had been forced off the road by 3 men in a blue Chevrolet the day after the escape. What do you think of the inaccurate FBI reports? Are they hiding something? With regards to the topic of hypothermia, Anglin brothers already had the experience beforehand, and they know well that swimming under calm tides was in their favour. It was also noted that 11 p.m. tides could have been good enough to swim over, proven by all the triathlon athletes who swim the same route, and over the years they were all successful. What happened to the 4th man, Alan West? I did some research. His account of how the other prisoners escaped was given the morning after the escape. Having served his sentence in federal prison, he was transferred to state prisons and eventually released. Soon after, he was convicted of more crimes and was sent back to prison. He killed a cellmate and died from abdominal injuries at the hospital. As for the Alcatraz case, the result of the investigation is still inconclusive and remains one of the biggest mysteries in America's escape list. Does this story make you wonder how the notorious escapees escaped the escape-proof facility of Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary? Let us know your thoughts.